Okay, so this is Bravo Star of the Show. It's a deck that I made just recently, and it's the deck that I'm going to be taking to Auckland's ProQuests in a few days. And I wanted to just kind of describe the cards that I played and why I'm playing them. So starting with weapons, Winter's Woe, you can't really go past it in terms of at least one-handed Guardian weapons, and probably Guardian weapons in general. Um, this deck doesn't really play enough three-costed cards for Anathos, so failing that, Winter's Well is just unequivocally the best thing you can play. For shields, I chose Rampart of the Ram's Head over Stalagmite. Um, you could argue Stalagmite is better in terms of effect, but especially when you're using Crown of Seeds, I think Rampart just gets a little bit too good. Especially when you're actually pitching a card and not using Tunic for your Crown of Seeds. In terms of equipment, we have 6 different equipments we can play. Crown of Seeds is one, I think it's the best one. Being able to filter your arsenal and impinge, prevent a little bit of damage for just one cost as an instant is really strong. Um, Tunic, we played over a couple different, play main board over a couple different legendaries. I think the ability to use Crown Seed's ability essentially for free once every 3 turns is really strong. The extra 2 block you get on something like Tectonic Plating and the Seismic Surges I don't think are quite as good. You get a really similar effect with the Tunic as well as the additional effect with Crown Seeds. Creative Fist is a no-brainer, really good block value. The other option was Shock Charmers. I just don't quite think that this deck plays enough fuse cards to make Shock Charmers really good. It also wants to arsenal quite a lot. Ironhead Leagues was the last real equipment piece that I added in. The original version was Time Skippers, but I think Time Skippers just needs one too many cards in every hand to really make them good. And Ironhead Leagues, it's really good with Rampart, it's really good with Crown of Seeds. I think it's just good enough to play it. You don't really get premium choices in the leg slot, so that's what I've gone with. And then Sideboard equipment, another in boots. I bring this in for a lot of matchups. Viserai, Briar, Chain, um, Kano, of course. It comes in a lot. Heart of Ice is mainly just for decks that want to do things on your turn. So basically Prism and Kano. It also works as your Null Rune, so I only bring in Heart of Ice instead of the Null Rune boots for against Prism. I think that works a lot better. But yeah, the main way you enable Bravo's effect in this deck is the pulses. They're super integral to how you enable that effect and be as aggressive as you can be. All the pulses in general are really good. Pulse of Vault Heaven and Pulse of Arsenoth, especially playing them, is just as good as revealing them. The Pulse of Candle Hold is still okay. It's just not quite as useful to play. The main big attacks that we play in this deck are Oaken Old. Oaken Old is just amazing. It's the only fuse card that we play. It's just, yeah, really, really strong. That unhit effect is just almost impossible to come back from. And if it's used with Bravo and fused, 11 with Dominate and Go Again is just absolutely massive. You can't really go past that. We also play a bunch of aggressive cards. We play full playsets of Enlightened Strike, Command and Conquer, Blue Glacial Footsteps, and Cranial Crush. Um, those are just some big attacks. You can use the Footsteps and Cranial Crush with Bravo's ability as well. Enlightened Strike with Go Again into something like Swinging the Winter's Well, or just playing a Command and Conquer. All really strong turns. This deck really likes having 3 and 4 card hands. Especially for Bravo's effect, but also just in general. It also wants to arsenal a card a lot for Crown of Seeds, so you don't really want to be blocking very much in this deck, although I did kind of build this deck in a way that it can block quite a lot. It plays 4 reactions mainboard, 3 Sink Below Reds, and 1 Pummel Blue. Talking with some friends about Pummel in this deck, I always wanted to play 1 mainboard. And yeah, what some friends really said was you only really want the on-hit effect from Pummel anyway. That's the only part that's really relevant, and most people aren't overblocking, so the amount of damage you get in isn't really relevant. So in that case, why not play the blue version? and I found it's been really good so far. Sync below so you can keep more premium 3-card hands and 4-card hands with an arsenal. Yeah, it's just so you can have a little bit more defensive power as well. Also, the filter in sync below is really strong. Yeah, that's why you play that. Moving on to the elemental package. Aside from the pulses, of course, we've got the lightning package. We play 10 base lightning cards. Blue flash. I think a lot of people play blink in place of blue flash. I think flash is really strong. And just being essentially another copy of blink, but it can also block. I think the number of times that flash being able to block is going to come up more often than blink being better than flash when you play it. We also place it at blue Heaven's Claws. It's just a lightning card that blocks 3, and that is also blue. That's basically the only reason we play it. We play 3 copies of red Lightning Surge and 1 copy of blue Lightning Surge. Lightning Surge is super strong from the arsenal, especially the red copy. And also, even just by itself, it's still a really strong just go again attack. And it's really awkward to block effectively, especially when your opponent's on low life. So you play just the 10 base lightning cards, plus the 2 lightning pulses. Moving on to Earth, we play a playset of red and a playset of blue Autumn's Touch. Autumn's Touch being a 3-cost attack is really good for Brava's effect. So you can get Dominate and go again off it, even though it has no on-hit effect. It's still fine, and being able to block for 3 is really strong. We also play 3 copies of red Evergreen and 1 copy of blue Evergreen. It doesn't really matter whether we arsenal this or not. This deck doesn't often go to the late game. It's just another big 3-cost Earth attack that we can play and give Dominate and go again with Brava's ability. You notice all the Earth cards are big attacks, and that is deliberate so that whenever you reveal for Bravo, unless you're revealing an Earth Pulse and don't have any other Earth cards, you will have a 3-cost attack to be able to play. Moving on to Ice. Ice is the biggest element in this deck, mostly for Winterswell. Also, apart from the pulses, they are all blue. That just being just Pulse of Vault Haven is the only non-blue Ice card in this deck. We play 3 blue Chill to the Bone. It's basically just for the Winterswell to essentially double that on-hit effect, pitching an Ice card as well, to really force our opponent into blocking that completely. Channel like Frigid is a really strong disruption card. It blocks 3, and it taxes all of your opponent's cards and activated abilities. Super strong, even if you can only keep it in play for 1 turn. It's still really disruptive. Blue Winter's Grasp is a block 3 that doesn't really matter what else it does. It just needs to be blue, ice, and blocks 3. Blizzard, Light Channel like Frigid, is another really strong disruption card that's ice and blue. It's an instant, so it doesn't block, which is a little bit awkward sometimes. But being able to strip your opponent's go again on any of their attacks, unless they pay 2, can be really strong. You can prevent a lot of damage with it. You can stop your opponents having an arsenal with it. It's just very good. Blue Ice Quake, we're getting to the bottom of the barrel a little bit in terms of ice blues. It's still fine. It works as essentially another copy of Chill to the Bone, but it also gives +1 for the cost of 1 resource, which is, it's fine. We play 2 blue Polar Blast and 1 blue Weave Ice. These are just the worst ice blues. It doesn't really matter what we do with them, because generally they're going to be used just to pitch for the Winterswell anyway, or pitched for some other big attack. So yeah, it doesn't really matter what they do. The Weave Ice could be a 3rd Polar Blast. The Polar Blasts could be a 2nd or 3rd Weave Ice. It doesn't really matter. So that's the main deck. Moving on to the sideboard. Aside from the 2 sideboard equipment, we have a full set of Spinal Crush, 2 Righteous Cleansing, which I think is incredibly strong into decks that like to set up a lot. Especially combined with the 2 sideboarded red pummels. Righteous Cleansing and Pummel often come in together. And they're just very, very strong when used together and can really disrupt your opponent's setup. Aside from that, we have some reactions, some defense reactions. We have 3 red Faithful Sin and 2 red Unmovable. These are mostly for matchups that we can't race, like Dorinthia. This is just so that we can stop Dorinthia's momentum when she starts to build it, and then keep another fork-out hand in a later turn and come back with a big attack and take momentum back. Unmovables could also be red staunch responses. I like Unmovable just because you get that extra +1 from playing it from Arsenal, and this deck plays virtually no yellows, so the fact that Unmovable costs 3 and staunch response costs 2 isn't really relevant. But yeah, that is the whole deck. I'll bring up the FabDB list here. If I can provide a link to this list, I will as well. But yeah, you can see the main deck here and the sideboard as well. Also, if you go into the FabDB deck list, you'll also have some notes, the cards that I took out from the first list, the first version of this list, and some cards that I added in, notably Art of War, Blink, Terra Sunder, and Expose the Elements. Those are cards that I was playing in the first iteration of this deck, and now I'm not, and the FabDB notes kind of explain why I took those cards in and out. And it also has a sideboard guide. So yeah, that's about everything. Thank you for watching.